Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Well, I'm good. I hope you're well. I hope everyone else is joining us as well. Um, I want to talk about a story that was in Newsweek yesterday. Putin will not live to see 2024, says exiled Russian official. Any idea who that official might be?
I have no clue, but I know that this idea gets momentum, and a lot of people are coming to this idea.
Well, I don't want to reveal any sources, but I have a feeling whoever that exiled Russian official was, he might be here with us today, and I'm not an exiled Russian official. So I think that leaves you.
Not yet, not yet. I mean,
Well, I am.
just real.
I am Russian by blood, and I'm not an official, and I have not been exiled yet. We'll see what happens. So this is an interesting story. We, of course, have talked about with you a lot about how much longer will Putin live. So I don't want to necessarily get into that today. But what I would like to hear you talk about is why do you think there's interest in this now? What is it about this time right now? What's happening in Russia and Ukraine and the rest of the world that would have the press suddenly get so interested in the lifespan of Putin? And because this story got picked up by other news outlets around the world. It's been a huge news item since it broke in Newsweek yesterday. Why do you think, what is the timing on this? Why do you think it's significant today?
When people hope and pray for something, uh, they like to hear the news that's related to those hopes. It was a very popular meme in both Ukraine and in Russia um, before the new year, shortly before the new year. It was Santa Claus reading the wish list and said, "Guys, come on, I'm not the killer." Uh, so that's what many people anticipate may happen. Some people fear it, some people hope for it, but a lot of people think that it's very much a probability,
Yeah.
and they're looking for such news.
So it seems to me it would be pretty ironic if he, for instance, passed away by falling out of a window.
Nobody would believe it, by the way. If it would be genuine, nobody would believe it.
Well, I want to read a quote from this exiled Russian official, and we're kidding about it, but it was you. You were quote. I mean, there's no secret to that. I put a link to the story. In fact, I'll put it in there again because we've had some people join us. This is a story that ran in Newsweek yesterday. Putin will not live to see 2024, says exiled Russian official, and it was Ilya. He was quoted in the story, so we're teasing. There's no mystery to that. You said in the article, my personal dream obviously is to see Putin in The Hague. So, in other words, tried for war crimes. But I do not think he will make it, Ponomarev said. Those around him will not allow him to go to The Hague because his testimony may actually be very harmful for him. So he will be killed. What does he know that those around him are afraid that he will reveal?
Quite a lot of things. Uh, in Russia today, um, there is such an unofficial tradition that uh, a lot of stolen money is not being put on the personal accounts, but is usually associated with different nominal holders. Uh, it's a very famous thing, and also a joke, which is not a joke, that the most wealthy, world's most wealthy violin player is someone named Sergei Roldugin, and you could never heard about him as a performer, but he is a school buddy of Mr. Putin, and that's why he is in all of Panama Papers and whatever. I am 100% certain that there is not a single paper between the two, but just Putin trusts the guy and puts some of his personal money into his pocket so that he can use it at some point in the future. But all others, they do the same. And it's a usual thing in the gang because I think nobody would betray each other because they know that they would be killed if they would start doing things. But as soon as the Godfather is gone, and this main referee who keeps them accounts is gone, then everything may happen, and that would be in many people's interest to do so.
Hmm. It seems to me that when stories like this run and they pick up, and this not only had a your interview with Newsweek not only had huge interest in the US, but around the world. It seems to me that when discussions like this about him not even making it to the Hague because he'll be killed first because of what he knows, I have to think as a journalist, if I was a younger journalist and I saw that, I would think to myself, this is my Watergate moment. This is my all the president's men, Woodward and Bernstein opportunity to make a name for myself and fame for myself as a journalist. Do you think there are journalists who are trying to uncover some of this hidden information? Because not only is it good for the world, because it means the end of Putin, but it's also great for their careers?
Obviously, but the story is that it's not enough just to reveal the story. It's very important that the story is actually heard and understood and made people interested in it. I will bring an example. The story, which I currently think is true, about that Putin was behind blowing the residential buildings in 1999 in Russia, was revealed in 2002.
Mhm.
In any normal country, such story would be a guarantee that the person would never be re-elected on the second term, and that even there is no evidence to this. Still, the person, if not going to jail, but at least would have been probed for it.
Yes.
But nothing like this even happened, and more, um, many people just didn't believe in it at the time when it was revealed because uh, mm, this publication was not timely in this regards, and it doesn't matter whether it's truthful or not. Just people were not ready to accept this truth. Right now, it's the other way around. They're ready to accept whatever truth. In all the cartoons, in all the pictures, Putin is the murderer number one, is the poison, is a mobster, is whatever. So, like everything right now about this man is normal. And okay, you will publicize about a particular account here and there. That would not make to Pulitzer.
Mm.
It could be a very important thing, and this is probably the second thing where nobody would be interested in him speaking in the Hague, is about certain arrangements that he was doing on his way with different global leaders. That would be really interesting. You know, I'm pretty sure that he had a lot. Well, during such a long period of time, uh, it should have been a lot of interesting conversations with both American, European, Chinese, other leaders where he was making certain promises, they were making certain promises, they were making certain deals under the table, and some of those stories I know from the insiders. And, I cannot reveal them because they were told me, by some interesting people who were inside the story. They did not authorize me. They shared, like, totally off the record, something which was happening. But I can tell you there are some certain things which could cost some global leaders all of their career. And if such things would start to be released by Mr. Putin personally during an open trial, that would be interesting.
Do you think there's any chance, and this is going to be pure speculation on your part, but do you think there's any chance that, let's say, Putin is captured and he knows he is going to have to testify at the Hague? Think there's any chance that he might try to kill himself?
I don't believe him. That's not in his character. I think that he is genuinely a coward. That's why, no, I don't think so. I think that he would try to survive. I actually think that being, again, a former KGB and a security officer, that he would vice versa, would try to threaten people, to blackmail people by those revelations. He would start telling that they all recorded somewhere, kill me, they would be released, so you don't touch me. I would rather believe in such actions on his behalf, but I don't think that they would work. Again, there's so many interested parties that I think that somebody would pull the trigger.
So it's interesting. What you're describing is somebody who is the ultimate survivalist. No matter what hand they're dealt, they're going to try to figure out the way to make the best of it and get out alive. And I say that because it's a setup for the next thing I want to ask you about. Um, there's a story going around about, and I don't explain this well, but the head of the Wagner Group announced one success on the battlefield, and then the Kremlin contradicted him, and it makes it look like there's conflict between the Wagner Group and the Kremlin. So that to me begins to look like the world of Vladimir Putin might be splintering in some important ways. There's also a story on the Daily Beast today. The headline is Putin loses it in taped meeting with Russian officials. It doesn't matter whether you've seen the story or not, but at least in the news coverage here in the West, it begins to look like there's some splintering in the world of Vladimir Putin that's either coincidental or maybe it is actually indicative of some bigger problems that are also going to lead to his demise. Your thoughts?
Uh, on the latter part, I think that it's absolutely true. I think that probably the scale of it's a bit over exaggerated again because journalists they like those. Yeah, but I think that in general this process is rapidly evolving. In general, he lost a lot of touch to the elites, and he lost a lot of his personal appeal, and he lost a lot of his image of being a powerful man. That's also what I was telling to these Newsweek guys. That, he doesn't look anymore like an alpha male. He looks one off. You know, uh, in the back, which currently runs the Kremlin. And for him, certainly, it's very bad because all of his power has been based by the assumption that he is the leader. Um, but about what you're saying about the military guys and Gozhan, there, I think the situation is quite different. First of all, I think that Prigozhin obviously has a very good contact with Putin. And I think that Putin is doing everything possible to um, uh, uh, promote Prigozhin in the public eyes so that there is a false alternative that if not Putin, then Prigozhin.
Yes.
Because he sees this as uh, his security, as the guarantee that the West would not try to assassinate him, because that it would be afraid that Prigozhin may come to power, and nobody wants to see Prigozhin with a nuclear button,
Yeah.
in his hands. That's why I think that it was artificial. It's again, uh, an outside observer even would notice that, say, Ramzan Kadyrov, who was the bad guy, the boogeyman of the past, he somehow went into the shadows, and Prigozhin, vice versa, was promoted to the front lines as the same personality. Because, probability, Kadyrov could not pretend to be the leader of Russia. It seemed by many as an improbable scenario. Oh, with Prigozhin, people can. that should happen, and Putin needs it. But at the same time, there is conflicts between Prigozhin and Russian military. And Putin is doing also everything possible to actually encourage this conflict. Because for him, it's also a security, but already inside the country, that nobody would be capable of a military coup. Neither Prigozhin, who is a trusted man, but just in case, nor Shoigu, who is also very trusted. But again, they are currently very, very much armed people, uh, very noticeable, with mobilized force under them. Mm, And just as a precaution, Putin encourages them fighting with each other. And it was a funny thing that just recently, yesterday, he replaced Surovikin as the chief commander of the war with chief of staff, or military chief of staff, General Gerasim. And I think that the only reason for such move was because Prigozhin was allied with Surovikin, but criticizing Gerasim. And again, the balance needed to be restored because the competence of Gerasim is very questionable. Competence of Surovikin is also pretty questionable, but with Gerasim, it's even more questionable. That's why here the question is not about the competence, but it's the question of this balance of power which Putin is trying to maintain.
Hmm. It's really interesting because I think as you're describing his ability to strategize, I think it's so beyond what the typical person would ever think. Like, to think that he might have a conflict with someone to create the idea that if this person ever came into power, it would be worse than Putin himself is it's brilliant, frankly. It's frighteningly brilliant in its
It's a typical Russian PRs. It's absolutely nothing special because this is what Russian elites, this is the game Russian elites are playing all the time and on all levels. Uh, uh, Sometimes people they actually procure certain criticism, so people would pay to uh, people at Navalny's side to make Navalny criticize somebody, to make him immune from any removals by Mr. Putin, because if he's being criticized by an arch rival, means that we need to preserve the guy.
yeah.
That's again, it's absolutely typical. Here's nothing brilliant. That's what everybody learns for a very long time. It exists for many years, so it's absolutely nothing special.
Well, what I hope Ilya comes back. I was going to say this may be obvious to someone who's Russian. I think it's less obvious to us. I'm sure in the intelligence circles in the West they understand this, but I think for many of us in the West, it's a level of strategy that's beyond how we normally look at politics. Because I think we tend to live in a world where politics is pretty honest. We're losing Ilya, but we're just going to hang here and see what happens. Ilya, I don't know if you can hear me or not. What you're describing in terms of, having Navalny criticize somebody reminds me of, for instance, when a politician on the right in the U.S., I think John McCain has done this, Donald Trump has done this, saying things like, "Oh, the New York Times is criticizing me. I take that as a compliment. That's a great thing that the New York Times is complimenting me. That means I'm doing the right thing for my party and my country." It's the same sort of idea of turning someone who's critical of you, turning the criticism itself into a positive. I don't know if you heard any of that. I don't know if we can hear you. Go ahead and talk, and we'll see if we can hear you. I think we may have lost Ilya. We can't hear you. Um, I'm going to ask another question while you're trying to adjust your sound. Well, maybe I better wait because he may not be able to hear me either. Um, Okay, well, that's not unpredictable given how things were going on Ilya's end. Let's wait and see if he's able to join us. Um, the other thing I was going to ask him, actually, now, I just brought up, yeah, Ilya's mute. Yeah, now we've lost him. I was wanted to get his thoughts on the change or the election of the new Speaker of the House in the U.S. and if he thought that would have an impact on aid to Ukraine. And obviously, I also wanted to get an update on the Congress itself. If you were here at the beginning of the show, you heard me announce that we were going to make this show a little ended a little early today because both Ilya and I have calls right at 11:30 Eastern time. So I think we'll wrap it up here. I am going to give you links to next week's shows and just assume that Ilya would not be joining us. And I'm actually having some computer trouble on my end as well. So I cannot. Lucas, if you're here, can you put links for next week's shows? Lucas is here. Thank you for doing that. I'm having some computer trouble, so I appreciate your doing that. We'll wrap it up here. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to apologize for Ilya and his technical problems, but I think it was a really great discussion. So I'm glad he could join us for as long as he could. And we'll see you next Wednesday with Thomas Nadrowski at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern with Ilya. Something tells me there will be a lot to talk about between now and then with both of them. And Linda, I am actually behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but that is the Pacific Ocean. So I'm on the West Coast today. Ilya's back, so we'll give him a chance to come back and we'll wrap things up. Hold on here. Let's see if we can make this work. We'll see if he can actually come back and join us. But I think once he gets here, we're going to wrap things up anyway. Give him a chance to say goodbye and then wrap up anyway. Hey there. Welcome.
Yeah, I pre-logged in, but I was logged in. Sorry.
Hey, listen, I just told everybody that both you and I have calls we have to jump on right at 11:30 Eastern. So why don't we wrap it up for today and we'll pick up this conversation next week when we talk again.
Thank you very much, guys. It was nice to see everybody.